All right. If you have been following the trend of events in the world, you will have noticed what is going on right now. Trump is trumping everything in the world, and he has come up with what he called Liberation of America, or the Day of Liberation, April 2nd, with a new package of tariff. And the idea basically is to reciprocate what other people around the world have been doing to America. America has been playing Big Brother for many years. They have basically been charging less on tariff than many other countries around the world. But now they've decided to reciprocate. And I think few countries that are on the same par, I think UK have to be one of them, 10% tariff. But for Nigeria, the news says it is 14%. So if you look at the screen, you can check it on Nairametrics. On Nairametrics, it was reported that Trump actually imposed 14% tariff on Nigerian export to United States of America. In a sweeping move that could redefine global commerce, United States President Donald Trump announced a baseline 10% tariff plan on all imports, alongside sharper country-specific reciprocal tariff. Export from Nigeria to United States will attract 14% compared to 27% Nigeria imposed. So can you see? And that's what has happened. Nigeria averagely imposed about 27% on trade with America. That's import from America. But America has not been imposing tariff on a number of Nigerian products, maybe because of AGOA or for different reasons. But now we are going to be experiencing 14% tariff, a whopping 14% tariff on export of Nigeria. And you can get this report on Nairametrics. But what I want to show this morning is to look at, okay, so what are the products that will be affected? First of all, what are the products that will be affected? First of all, let's look at Nigerian export in 2023, about $61 billion. You will notice something that US is a major export destination of Nigeria. US is a major export destination of Nigeria. And that's very instructive. That's very instructive because it tells us the reliance of Nigeria on the US. 10% is a lot. That's about 6 billion. 10% is a lot. That's about 6 billion. But what's more interesting and important to me in this conversation is, what are the items that Nigeria export to the US? Because by the time we know the item Nigeria export to the US, then we'll be able to know what are the products that will be affected. What are the items that Nigeria export to the US and what are the products that have been affected? Remember, Nigeria is US has imposed 14% tariff on imports from Nigeria, even though Nigeria is putting 27% tariff on US export to Nigeria. The implication of that is that a number of Nigerian products going to the US, which hitherto have been going duty-free, mainly because of AGOA or for other agreement or for other concession, maybe the global system of preference. You know, there's this global system of preference that enable developed countries to reduce tariffs that they charge on developing countries. And the idea around that is to encourage trade with developing countries and to ensure that trade with developing countries grows. Because they believe that with trading more with developing countries, it will help to increase production, increase employment, reduce inequality and poverty in that country. But the question is, where does Nigeria export to? You will notice that Nigeria export, one of the largest export destinations of Nigeria in 2023 is United States, 10%. Spain, 9%. Netherlands, 7%. China, 4%. India, about 6%. France, about 7%. US is a major export destination for Nigerian products. Now, the question we then ask is, what are the items that Nigeria currently exports to the US? What are the items that Nigeria currently exports to the US? The major export of Nigeria to the US is crude oil and gas. In 2023, out of about $6.3 billion of Nigeria export to the US, $6.3 billion, Crude oil is about 75% of the total export, and petrol gas is about 15%. So about 90% of Nigerian export to the US is crude oil and gas. Nigeria will need to find other markets for its crude oil and gas because there's a serious reliance on US for Nigerian export of crude oil and gas. Because of this new tariff of 14%, of course, the implication of that is not going to make Nigerian crude oil and gas to be very competitive again. Other countries that are able to produce competitively, maybe Russia, maybe Saudi Arabia, other producers of this product are going to have to take Nigeria out of the market. Remember, we need a lot of FX right now. I mean, it's not a good time to have this kind of news actually from Nigeria, from the US. And this is across board for the US, across board for the US. In fact, and what I discovered when you look at that report, what I discovered is that a number of the tariff that the US is imposing on other countries, in my opinion, is very fair. But when you analyze what other countries are charging US, vis-a-vis what US is charging other countries, US is still, in my opinion, it seems as if US is still playing the big brother. Because when you look at the tariff, actually, you realize the fact that US is still charging either at par or even less for a number of tariffs around the world. Either at par or even less the number of tariffs around the world. And that speaks to the fact that even though Donald Trump have a big issue with the way he said, Donald Trump believe that everybody's taxing US and US is not taxing everybody. For example, China is number one on the list. The China tariff, average tariff on the US product is about 67%. But US right now is, I think, about 37, 38, or 39%. So US is still a lot lenient, sincerely, compared to a number of other countries around the world. European Union is about 39, and they are imposing 20. Vietnam is about 90, they are imposing 46. Japan is about 46, they are imposing 24. India is about 52, they are imposing 26. Nigeria is about 27, and they are imposing 14. What I realize is that US seems to be coming more midway. Apart from other countries where they ensure they don't go below 10, which is where UK, for example, come in, they don't go below 10 for many countries. Now, Nigeria is trying to promote non-oil exports, right? So what are the non-oil exports that will be affected? Because out of about 6.3 billion, about 10% of the 6.3 billion export of Nigeria to the US, about 10% of that is actually non-oil export. Non-oil. Now, what are those non-oil exports that Nigeria export to the US? The item within the non-oil exports paid that Nigeria export to the US include nitrogenous fertilizer, that's from Dangote, Petrochemical, Nutori Chemical, and the like. Raw lead. Out of about 504 million non-oil export of Nigeria to the US, nitrogenous fertilizer is about 33%. Raw lead is about 70.5%. Perfume plants is about 6.22%. Cocoa paste about 7.34%. Soya beans meal about 3.322%. Cocoa is about 2%. Nigeria is not doing a lot of cocoa to the US. Precious metal about 2.33%. Now, so that means nitrogen fertilizer, Dangote, we have to look for other market. The exporter of lead ore from Nigeria, we have to look for other market. Cocoa paste export from Nigeria, we have to look for other market. Perfume plant export, we have to look for other market. Because the challenge I foresee with all this is that we are not going to be competitive again. And because we're not competitive again, in fact, let me talk about some of the implications of this on Nigeria. So what are the implications of this new regime of tariff of the US on Nigeria? Number one is reduced competitiveness. The tariff increases Nigerian goods export to the US, potentially making it less competitive compared to that from other countries. Remember, we are competing with countries that produce efficiently And because they produce efficiently, that means we might not be able to compete. Trade is likely going to be declined. And remember, we need forex. Nigeria, Africa need forex. If we do not look for other markets, we're going to see a decline in trade volume. Higher costs may lead to a decrease in Nigerian export, resulting in the reduced trade volume and foreign exchange earning. We might need to brace up for an increase in exchange rate. It's currently between 1.516. We might be seeing an increase in exchange rate because the source of about 10% of Nigerian export is about to be cut off. It's about to be cut off. Economic impact on exporters. Exporters, particularly in export sector that rely heavily on the U.S. market, may experience revenue loss and could lead to downsizing of business closure in Nigeria. So what should Nigerian government do? Initiate discussion with the U.S. trade representative to seek a reduction in the tariff, emphasizing mutual economic benefit. We need to initiate conversation. That's what many countries are doing. You can't say you don't want to trade with the U.S. U.S. control 1/3 of global capital, and U.S. is the largest importer in the world. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. In fact, do you know that Trump is saying many companies are now importing? I think Apple is importing about 1 trillion. Many countries, Meta about 500 billion. Many companies in the U.S., outside the U.S., are now investing in the U.S. to produce in the U.S. And that's exactly what Trump wants to achieve. And he's achieving it. He's achieving it because he knows that there will be initial pain, but in the long run, it will be better for them. We need to engage in diplomatic conversation with them, diversify export, encouraging support exporters to explore and penetrate alternative international market for Nigerian products in order to reduce over-reliance on the U.S. market. Reduce over-reliance on the U.S. Enhance domestic competitiveness. Invest in infrastructure, providing incentive to implement policies that lower production costs in Nigeria and improve global competitiveness in Nigeria. Nigerian businesses must diversify their market right now. We need to diversify market right now. Diversify your market. Identify and establish trade relationship with other regions, Asia, Europe, even Africa, under the AFCFTA to mitigate the impact of U.S. tariff. Value addition becomes necessary to be able to find other markets for those products, particularly in Africa, and we need to become cost efficient. Government will need to support in this regard to reduce operational costs, enhancing ability to absorb tariff impact without significantly reducing and increasing the price. And it's important, extremely important for Nigerian government to come to the aid of export right now. Minister of Trade, this is a call to action. In fact, wake-up call actually for Nigeria. We definitely must do something. We are losing about 10% of the source of trade for Nigeria. I hope we do something very serious about this in order to ensure that we survive the implication of Trumpism. See you in the next video, and bye for now.